So, last week, we started this thing, and now we covered the first part of the two-part lesson. And what I'm going to do now is just review by just going over some real quick bullet points just to make sure we're all on the same page. And we're going to jog our memories just a little bit. Now, we said over the last 6 to 9 months, our world has really been in a mess. And it's been changing every day. And never like it has ever before. And the chain of events showed just how fast God can move when he wants to. It appears we're on the cusp of the 7-year tribulation. The foreshadows of that tribulation are ever coming over this current time frame, darkening it today. So we can see it coming, as if we're here, and the foreshadows of the tribulation are just beginning to overshadow us, and it's getting darker all the time. What we need to do is to get closer to Jesus as soon as possible and get our house in order spiritually. What is God doing? Well, we said, I believe God is allowing all of this that is happening today to get our attention, to get us to let go of this world. Instead of digging our roots into this temporal soil of this fallen world, he's trying to make it easier for us to let go. Just as God allowed the death of King Uzziah, he may also allow the end of our king. And I left that blank, and I said, you fill in the blank. Tonight, if you haven't, I will. He said, he allowed that death to shake the things up and loosen our grip and put our focus where it should be, on the Lord. It's time to stop fighting for our way of life, trying to keep it on life support. Remember what Jesus said to Pilate? He said, very little. In fact, Pilate said, aren't you speaking to me? And he talked about his disciples fighting for him. He says, this kingdom, my kingdom, is not of this world. If it were, my disciples would be fighting for me right now. This isn't our home. Mm-hmm. We think of it because this is where we are, but this isn't our home. And neither is our citizenship here. Our citizenship and our home is in heaven. Our view of the Lord, we said, is very important. Do we see him seated on the throne as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, knowing the beginning from the end? Is he in complete control? Or do you see him as something less? Do you remember the little skit about if you don't see him this way, the way you're seeing him is up there biting his fingernails, walking back and forth, wondering what to do, calling Gabriel and Michael, come here, what are we going to do? That's not how we're supposed to view him. Jesus is our only hope. Now, last week I left you with a little homework assignment. We were talking about what God did. He blinded the eyes of the people and hardened their hearts. And I said, you probably thought, boy, that was really cruel. He blinded their eyes and hardened their hearts so they couldn't believe. So I said, come to a decision. Was that really cruel? Once you make your decision, do you have a reason why you think it was or think it wasn't? So I didn't want to let you use the easy part. You could just get away with that. There's a reason behind it. Did anybody have a chance to give that a shot? I know someone that did. Anybody give it a try? Why? Was it cruel? Well, you know, you could at least take the easy way out and say, geez, that's my dad, that's my father. He wouldn't do anything cruel to me. And you'd be probably right. But why? Well, here's the answer. Now, the one that got it was Theola. She came up with it, researched it, and found it. Actually, it is not cruel. It is just the opposite. It's the grace of God, and here's why. God knew that they would not receive with their hearts. He knew they would reject the truth. Their hearts were already hardened, and they had already made up their minds. The Lord knew that they would not hear with their ears, and he knew that they would not see with their eyes. And he is actually protecting them. If they were to see and hear and receive and still reject them, the judgment that is mentioned in Luke's gospel records it. He says, some will be beaten with more stripes than others in hell. He is actually, in his grace, protecting them from this judgment. You know, because he foreknows, the key word there is he foreknows who is going to reject him. He's not, as some believe, predestining anybody to hell. He foreknows who's going to accept him and who is not. And this is, by the way, why Jesus actually spoke in parables, so that they didn't get it. He did that to protect them. It really amazes me. Here's God, our Father. He even knows that he will be rejected by these people. And yet, in his love, he's trying to protect them as much as he can. That was the grace of God, and that's the love of God. Now, Isaiah said this because he saw Jesus. He saw Jesus' glory, and he spoke about it. And this got my attention because Isaiah is saying that who he saw seated on the throne was Jesus himself. And we get that from what we read last week, John chapter 12, verses 37 through 41. Then he says that he spoke about him. We need to hang on to that for a minute. Seeing the glory of Jesus seated on the throne, it will absolutely change everything in our lives because of the impact it has had on our lives. And we can have proof of that, by the way, as evidenced by the impact it had on Isaiah. First, it was that it humbled him. Then it sanctified him. Then it empowered him to speak about the Lord. Mm-hmm. And here's where I'm going with this. This is exactly what the Lord desires of us today. He wants us to have that impact on us and on our lives by turning our eyes away from these circumstances of this world and get your eyes on Jesus. Now, I think it would be a mistake not to let you know what to expect. And this is sort of the fine print. If and when we turn to Jesus and look upon Jesus, first, then there will be this profound and even overwhelming revelation of our own sinfulness. When we're in the presence of God's holiness. His holiness is so great. Mm-hmm. We'll never be good enough. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's what happened to Peter in Luke chapter 5, verse 8. When he realized it was Jesus and he fell on his face and he cried out, "Depart from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." And the Apostle John in Revelation chapter 1, verse 17, on the island of Patmos, where he received the revelation, he fell down, and we're told as though he were dead. And in the presence of the holiness of God, he cried out, "Holy, holy, holy, depart from me." And then in Isaiah chapter 6, and the verses we read there were verses 1 through 41, if you remember. But in verse 5, he says, "Woe is me." And it is interesting that he'd say, "For I am undone." What does he mean, I am undone? He's like his sinfulness is like an open book. He just realizes how sinful he is in the holiness of God. And then he says, why? Because he says, "I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips, for my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts." You know, it makes you wonder about the foul and vile posts we hear about on social media. Out of the abundance of a man's heart, the mouth speaks and is unclean. You know, especially with the younger generation, how many have destroyed their chance to bring and present Jesus to others because of what they have posted and said there. That's why in Isaiah 6, verse 6, the seraphim takes the live coal from the altar with tongs and touches Isaiah's mouth and takes away his iniquities and purges his sin. So the question is, why did he have to touch his lips and sanctify him? I think the answer is twofold. And to be truthful, first I believe, and I hope I say this the right way, we can have big mouths and we can have foul mouths. And we need the Lord to take that coal and cleanse them. Secondly, the reason is, I believe, is found in Isaiah verse 8. Isaiah, and this is interesting, I don't want to miss it, he looks to the Lord and he sees the Lord seated on the throne, and when he sees the Lord, when he takes his attention off everything else and looks to the Lord, he hears the voice of the Lord. But he had to be focused on the Lord and turn to the Lord, and then he heard the Lord's voice. You know, we have so many voices clamoring for our attention today, everywhere. The voice of the Lord just gets drowned out sometimes because we're not listening. And you know, sometimes that voice is our own voice, trying to tell the Lord what we think he's not saying or should be saying or he should be doing. You know, the Lord will speak in that still small voice, but he's not going to compete with the world and all the voices in the world to get our attention. In Psalm 46, verse 10, he says, "Be still and know that I am God." I think what he's saying there, be quiet, maybe shut up, and listen to what I have to say. You know, the volume has to be down, maybe really off. So in the quietness, you can hear the voice of the Lord. You might be interested to know what he has to say to you. Well, what did the Lord say to Isaiah? He said, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" Then I said, "Here am I, send me." In Isaiah, verses 9 through 13, still chapter 6, God says, okay, and sends him, but he warns him. Why? Because of what he's going to speak now that he has cleansed lips and a sanctified mouth. It's not going to be popular. People don't want to hear it. Neither will it lead to repentance or revival. Instead, it will be met with dull hearts, heavy ears, and shut eyes. Then when Isaiah asks the Lord, how long? And that's a question I think a lot of us are asking today. How long, Lord? How long? And the Lord answers Isaiah and he says, until the cities are laid waste and the land is utterly desolate. In other words, when time runs out, or when there is no more time. You know, there is a time coming, and it's very close, when there will be no more time to reach anyone.
Yes, sir.
Even though no one wants to hear it, the desolation is coming, and God is looking for Isaiah who will say, here I am, send me. And when he finds an Isaiah who will say that, here am I, send me, then God will sanctify those lips and will put his words in those mouths to tell people about Jesus. But you know, if you're one of those, or you're one of those, there are going to be times you're going to be met with dull hearts, heavy ears, shut eyes, and sometimes disrespect at best. No, I'd be wrong if I didn't say that, you know, I found myself starting to fall into this woe is me pit with some of the stuff that goes on in the elections round, especially when Obama got elected. It was like, what just happened? I was downright angry. Well, this time it wasn't as bad. It was still a little bad. Well, but what was different this time was the Lord settled my heart quickly. And he redirected my focus and put my attention where it should be. He put it on him. Now I think about what Isaiah wrote, and I think it was chapter 26, verse 3. He said, he will keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee. I sense that the Lord would have me to very simply say that we would do very well to get our eyes off of, and I'm going to fill the blank in, get your eyes off of Trump, if that's where they are. Get your eyes off of this election. Get your eyes off of the circumstances this world is going through in its downward spiral, and focus your eyes on Jesus. That should be simple enough, I think. The reason is this: the eyes of the Lord now are searching throughout the earth. He's looking to and fro. He's looking for Isaiahs whose eyes are on him, whose hearts are fully devoted to him, so he can sanctify them, put his words on their mouths, and they can proclaim, while there is still time, Jesus. How long, Lord? Until there's no more time. I struggled on how to say the following in a way that gets the point across without really giving the wrong meaning. Now, I don't ever want to say something the Lord wouldn't have me say, but I don't want to not say something he would have me say. And if he wants me to say it, I usually say it. I think the Lord would have me say this, but it might be the way I say it that's the problem. I'm glad in a way that the media declared Joe Biden the winner of the presidential election, because just maybe now, maybe that's what it's going to take. And maybe you're thinking, going to take what? Well, let me say it in a different way. God is allowing it, so we'll look to him, and not only look to him, but when we look to him, we will have a heartfelt need and a desire to tell others about him while there is still time, or before there is no more time. Now, maybe now Christians will just stop what they've been doing and start doing what they need to be doing. I hope you'll agree with this statement. If you don't, I'm still going to say it, because I believe it's true. We're living at a time like no other in history. And we have before us right now the greatest and grandest of opportunities to bring people to Jesus. People are the only thing, they're the only thing you can take to heaven with you.
Yes, sir.
All your things and all your stuff is going to stay behind. As I've said a lot of times, no U-Hauls behind a hearse. In fact, I don't ever remember seeing a hearse that even had a trailer hitch. So this is why God is allowing everything to happen. So we'll let go and do what we should have been doing right along. But you see, there's always that problem. We're usually unwilling to pick up our cross and die to ourselves and follow him. And that reason is because we love our lives, we love our stuff, we love our things in this world too much. And we're unwilling to let go. And in all fairness, I'll include myself a lot of times in that. But the things that God is doing today, like all of these things going on, I sort of liken it to you notice how your kids are just great and you love them? And then they become a teenager, someone flips a switch. I think that's so God will get you to the point that when they're ready to go, you can let them go a little easier. Well, I think that's what he's doing with the world right now. Making it not so easy to want to stay here. Let's let it go. We have just had it too good, too long. We've just had it too good for too long, and now that 52-year reign of King Uzziah has come to an end, and what has also come to an end with it is all of the peace, all of the prosperity and stability that we've known up to now. You know, could it be one last famous thing? And if we think this through, could it be one last famous thing that the Lord is sending to every single one of us? Are you ready yet? Mm-hmm. Are you willing to let go? Do you want to go home yet? Or you'll forgive me? Do you want 4 more years? Think of Elijah. What if God had come to Elijah prior to taking him home and had given him a choice? Here, Elijah, I've got a deal for you, all right? Behind door number 1, you're going to make Israel great again. You're going to drain the swamp of Jezebel. Lock her up. You're going to drain the swamp of Ahab. There's going to be a great revival, and you're going to make Israel great again. That's door number 1. Now, behind door number 2, here we go. I have this chariot over here with all these horses. And Elijah, because I know you like fire, I've got lots of fire here for you. And I want to take you up to heaven. What are you going to do? Where I come from, that's a no-brainer. That's sort of a slam dunk. I'll take what's behind door number 2. And God says, good, because that's where you're going. And you know what? That's where we're going.
Yes, sir.
So you think for 4 more years or 4 more, whatever you want to call it, I say, are we kidding ourselves? Could it be that this is what the Lord is saying to his people today? What are you fighting for? My kingdom is not of this world. You want to keep it on life support? Maybe it's time to pull the plug. And if that's too crass, I'm sorry, but I don't mean to be rude, but I want to speak the truth, and I believe that's the truth. I believe that's why talking about prophecy in relation to current events is very important. It helps redirect the focus of our lives back onto Jesus and onto Jesus only. That's the purpose, because, as the Bible tells us, there is no other name given among men whereby we shall be saved. It's the name of Jesus Christ. It's the good news of salvation in Jesus Christ. Here's another simple way to say it. The world today is bad news, but Jesus is good news. I hope that's not too simple. What is the good news? The gospel. The gospel is that Jesus Christ was crucified, he was buried, and he rose on the 3rd day, and he is coming back again one day soon, and I believe very soon. That's the good news. You know, we all need to take advantage of every single opportunity the Lord gives us to give out the good news, because the world can use good news about now. So again, stop what you've been doing. Start doing what we need to be doing. I like the saying, get Jesus to the people and get the people to Jesus. Get as many souls into that lifeboat as you can. We should be striving to move each person we meet every day at least a little closer to Jesus. And if we all do that when we meet, pretty soon we'll have that person to Jesus, and he'll take it from there. Now, I'm going to have a little tool handed out here that I said I would. And it's just called the ABCs of Salvation. It's a nice tool just to help witness. It makes it very easy. It makes it so you don't have to remember the verses or where they are. And if you use it in such a way, you can read just a little part of it and then have them read it and ask them, what does this say to you? Mm-hmm. And if they have questions, the answers are there. As I said, we as Christians need to get our focus on Jesus and be about what we should be doing instead of fretting and worrying and just talking about, and wondering what we're gonna do about we have no control over it. You know, have you ever heard the saying, and it's not good English, but maybe that'll make it stick. The badder the bad news, the gooder the good news will be. Right now, the bad news is really bad. And based on what we know, it's probably gonna get really, really bad. We're probably thinking, this sure sounds like doom and gloom. Okay, fine, it's doom and gloom. It's the death of the nation. Fight for your country. No. My kingdom is not of this world. You know, like anybody else, I know America's not what it used to be. The parties, Democrat, Republican, they're not what they were. But I still love America. But I don't love America more than I love Jesus. Our citizenship is not here. It is in heaven. So the question is, who will you take with you? So just real quick, I hope we answered our two questions. What is God doing? He's trying to get you to let go, make it easier for you to let go, and get your focus on Him. Now what? Do what you should have been doing right along. Get Jesus to the people, and get the people to Jesus before there is no more time.